Hey, good morning everyone. Wanted to do a video this morning about the hardest things about being an apostate. So, this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while. And it's a beautiful day for cruising. So, I thought I would come out here and talk about it because it was just too nice to stay in. I'll tell you my experience. My experience with being an apostate has been both liberating and horrific. And if there's any witnesses that are watching this now, it's not for the reasons that you think. You know? So I'm going to talk about the first thing that comes to mind when I think about why it's so damn hard being an apostate. Guilt. And again, you know, for the witnesses that are watching this, this is not the kind of guilt that you're thinking of. You know, if you're a witness, you're thinking that the guilt that I have stems from feeling like I have left Jehovah. But it isn't that. It's the constant feeling that's been indoctrinated into me by the witnesses of feeling like I have left Jehovah because I have left an organization that claims his name, that enforces a lot of unscriptural teachings. For instance, Christ not being our mediator. And the blood doctrine, which has been taken completely out of context. And that's another video that I want to do here soon that I've been thinking about. Because that's something that also scares the hell out of me and bothers me, because my daughter is still in the organization. So, you know, she's young, but her mom is in it, and so is her stepfather. So, if she needed a blood transfusion that could save her life right now, that is something that she could die for right now, for a faith that she's not even a part of, and she could lose her life right then and there for that. She's 11 years old, going on 12. But that's another video for another day. But what I want to talk about is the guilt. You know, when you become an apostate, it still is a struggle. You still have guilt. It doesn't just go away because you have learned that your religion is false according to Scripture. No, you still have this impending doom of Armageddon and dying. And you have this impending doom or fear and guilt for taking control of your own life. For instance, getting a blood transfusion, or getting that college education, getting that good job, because you feel like you're doing something wrong, because the organization has punched it into your head that everything that you do that is not according to their interpretation is apostasy, and it's wrong, and you are condemned for that. And I think that's one of the biggest things for cult survivors that happens, is you have this terrible feeling of guilt. It's awful. It's awful. That's one of the hardest things about being an apostate. There's two other main things that I wanted to talk about that I've been thinking about lately too. Another big thing is sexuality. You know, we have been so indoctrinated to resist what we are in every way that I think a lot of us, we go crazy when we get out into the world because we don't know how to handle our sexuality. We've never dealt with it. And it really is hard for us. I mean, here I am, 4 years out of the truth, the truth. All right, I'm 4 years out of it, and I struggle with my sexuality in so many ways, so many ways. When I got out, needless to say, I was all over the place. I hoed around a lot. And I got into a lot of trouble the way that a high schooler would get into a lot of trouble. Because I was never allowed to grow up. I was never allowed to deal with these things in a regular, normal human way, in my opinion. And I still got a lot of confusion towards that. So you know, that's another thing that I think a lot of ex-witnesses struggle with, and active witnesses struggle with. Sexuality. You know, every aspect of that is condemned outside of the realm of marriage. And even in marriage, it's heavily restricted. And I don't know how good or bad that is, as much as I'm just saying that that's a struggle. That's a real struggle. But I think the biggest thing is, you know, the biggest thing for me, and this is the main thing that I wanted to talk about in this whole video. The biggest problem that has ever been a problem for me is executive function. Executive functions would be feeling okay to take charge of your life and the decision making that you make, and be confident in that without feeling an overwhelming sense of guilt and inadequacy and doubt towards your own ability to make a decision. We weren't meant to be that way. We weren't meant to be so damn stifled that we can't even make a decision for ourselves. And that's wrong. And that's wrong. Executive functions are common sense. I went to a counselor about a year ago, and he's an awesome counselor, great guy. And he is a faith-based counselor, and I don't know if he'd want me using his name, but I won't refer to anything specific, but his name is Steve Foss. And Counselor Steve Foss told me something that was really, really encouraging. And if he gave me any kind of good scriptural, spiritual, practical counseling advice, this is what he told me. And if you get anything from this video, this is what I want you to get from this video. If anything, remember this. I told him, I said, you know, I still want to do things according to Scripture. I said, I'm still trying to be spiritual. He said, yeah, but you still got to have common sense. Or he said, you know, we talked about that for a minute, and basically the sum of the conversation is, yeah, but God still gave you common sense. And I was having a really good conversation about all of this with my daughter. And she said, straight up, she's 11 years old and she already gets it. She's like, yeah, she's like, I know my mom wants me to make good decisions. She said, but, you know, being a Jehovah's Witness doesn't mean I'm going to make good decisions. And I don't need to be a Jehovah's Witness to have common sense and to not make dumb decisions over my life. I said, yes. I said, Taya, you get it. Her name is Maisha Taya. I said, Maisha Taya, I said, yeah, you get it. I said, you finally get it. I said, you're 11 years old and you already get it, and I'm really proud of you. Because that's true. You don't have to be a Jehovah's Witness to have common sense. You don't even have to be a Christian to have common sense. For whatever reason, most of us are still endowed with decent decision making. And we need to not doubt that. You know, we have a reasonable level of decision making. And when it hits a level where we're not sure of, that's where our conscience or executive functions kicks in and enables us to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe I need a little more input on this. So the biggest struggle for me, and I can't tell you, you know, I can't relate this to everybody. Everybody's got their own experience, but I can tell you the hardest decisions, you know, or the hardest thing that has ever happened to me as far as being a witness and leaving the brotherhood goes is executive decision making. It's so hard for me to make a decision nowadays. Oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm going to choose this job. I'm going to choose that job. That's the hardest thing, because we have been taught as a witness to doubt every single thing and every single decision that we make if it is not filtered through Watchtower's interpretation. And that's something that we need to take back over our lives immediately. We need to take that control back over our lives. God gave us that common sense. He wanted us to think for ourselves. He wanted us to be like the Bereans. He wanted us to be like 1 John 4, to weigh things carefully, to think for ourselves. He didn't want us to look at it through the Watchtower lens and to not question it after that. No. If God does exist, He wanted us to use the common sense that He gave us to make reasonable executive decisions and use our executive functions over our lives. So anyways, those are just a few things that I was thinking of this morning as I'm sitting here riding around on this beautiful spring day that I wanted to share. And it's a tough one, you know, because if you're leaving the truth, the quote-unquote truth, you don't have, you know, the confidence to rely on your own decision making that an adult should have, that a healthy adult should have. Reasonable common sense, reasonable executive function decision making. Struggles with sexuality, struggles with being hypersexual because you have had to repress, I guess, how I feel like we've been made, how it seems like we've been made. And then the constant guilt of using these executive functions. The constant guilt of struggling with your sexuality and feeling like something's wrong with you because you've been repressed so damn much that you are out of your mind. So I hope that this video helps a few of you witnesses who are struggling, and all of you ex-witnesses who are struggling. You're not alone, you know. A lot of us are out here needing psychological help and mental help from being indoctrinated in a cult, you know, feeling like we can't even make any kind of decisions over our lives, feeling like we are incompetent, have no control, and are helpless. You're not alone. So, yeah, it's another reason I wanted to make this video, to let you know that you're not alone. So, this is DeAces signing out, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day if you're out there struggling.